8.2 multiplication and division. We go ahead and multiply or divide as normal and simply line up the decimal point with the 1 in the question. So we set this out as a traditional multiplication. So if it gets 57.6 multiplied by 4, let's put our decimal point in so that we've got a nice line. And we just multiply as we always do. So we do 4 multiplied by 6, which is 24. So we put down a 4 and carry a 2. 4 times 7 is 28. Add on 2 is 30. So we put down a 0 and carry a 3. And then 4 5s are 20 and 3 is 23. So we put down the 3. We don't really need to carry the 2, so we can just write it beside the 3. So the answer is 230.4. Second example, 273.62 divided by 8. So we're going to put 8 outside the bus shelter, and then we're going to put 273.62 under it, and we're going to make sure that the decimal points are in a line. So we divide this as normal. We see how many 8s go into 2, and that's going to be 0, and then we'll carry a 2. How many 8s are in 27? So 3 8s are 24, and there's 3 left over. 8 goes into 33 4 times, so we have 4s are 32, and then we carry a 1. 8 goes into 16 twice. 8 goes into 2, well it doesn't actually go into 2, so we need to extend our bus shelter, and let's add in a couple of extra zeros, so we're going to carry a 2. 8 goes into 20 twice, with a remainder of 4. And then 8 goes into 40 5 times with no remainder, so then we can stop there. And our answer is 34.2025. Example C, we've got 273.62. We'll put that under the bus shelter, and outside it we'll put the 7. And now the question says go to 2 decimal places. That means in the working out we have to go to 3 decimal places, because we need to see what the decider is going to look like. So if the third decimal place would be a 5 or more, that means our second decimal place will have to round up. So if we stop at 2 decimal places, we're potentially making a rounding error. We don't need to go beyond the third decimal place because the third decimal place is the decider. So let's divide this out. 7 into 2 doesn't go, so put down our 0 and carry our 2. 7 into 27 goes 3 times with 6 left over. 7 into 63 goes 9 times with no remainder. I've put in our decimal point, and we can see that it's in a nice line. 7 into 6 doesn't go, so put in our 0 and carry a 6. 7 into 62 goes 8 times with 6 left over, and then 7 into 60 goes 8 times again. Now, we don't care about the remainder because we only have to go to 3 decimal places. And we can see here that had we stopped at 2 decimal places, we would have had an answer of 39.08. But actually our decider, our third decimal place is an 8, which means we need to make this change. So we need to change that from an 8 to a 9. So let's just do that out properly. So 39.088. We'll put our dashed line between the decider and the changer. The decider's an 8, so we're going to round up. So we get 39.09. Multiplying and dividing by 10, 100 and 1,000, etc. If we multiply a decimal by 10, all the figures move one column to the left. So we could do a quick example to show that. If we had 4.73 times 10, let's put our decimal point in place. So 10 threes are 30, so we put down a 0 and carry a 3. 10 sevens are 70, plus 3 is 73, so we'll put the 3 down and carry a 7. 10 fours are 40, plus the 7 is 47, so So we'll put the 7 down and carry the 4, but we don't really need to, so we can just leave it as 47.3. And what we can see is that the hundredths column has moved to the tenths. The tenths have moved to the units, and the unit has moved to the hundreds column. So all the numbers have been moved one place value to the left. Another way that we can think about it is, rather than all the digits moving one space to the left, is that the decimal point has been moved one space to the right. So we've gone from between the 4 and the 7 to between the 7 and the 3. Similarly, if we were to multiply by 100, all the figures would move 2 columns to the left. If we were to do 4.73 times by 10, we get 47.3, as we've just seen. If we were to multiply that by 10 again, because multiplying consecutively by 10 twice is the same as multiplying by 100. So 10 noughts are naught, 10 threes are 30, naught and carry are 3, put in our decimal point. 10 sevens are 70, plus 3 is 73, so 3 and carry a 7. 10 fours are 40, plus 7 is 47. 7 and carry a 4, but we'll just put the 4 down, so we get 473.00. And there we can see the 3 has changed from a hundredth to a unit. The 7 has changed from a tenth to 100, and the 4 has changed from unit to 100. Sorry, the 7 had moved from a tenth to a 10. And again, we can see that the numbers have moved 2 columns to the left, or another way to think about it is that the decimal place has moved twice to the right. So it's moved from between the 4 and the 7 to after the 3, so it's moved twice. So here we've got another example of 25.31, where we multiply it by 10 to get 253.1, so all the numbers have moved once to the left. And 25.31 times by 100, all the numbers have moved 2 columns to the left. Dividing, if we were to divide a decimal by 10, all the figures move 1 column to the right. We can think of this as moving the decimal point 1 space to the left. So just to make that clear, if we had 562 divided by 10, so 10 into 5 doesn't go, so we put our 0 and carry a 5. 10 into 56 goes 5 times with 6 left over. 10 into 62 goes 6 times with 2 left over, so I need to put in my decimal point and a 0. We're carrying 2, and then 10 into 20 goes twice. So what we can see is that the 5 was 100, it's now a 10. The 6 was a 10, it's now a unit. And the 2 was a unit, is now a tenth. So all the numbers have been moved 1 column to the right, or the decimal place is moved 1 to the left. And the same goes for dividing by 100 or 1,000 or whatever. So again, just to make that clear, if we started off with 325.4 and we divide that by 10, we can see that all the numbers have moved 1 column to the right. Or another way to think about it is the decimal place has moved 1 to the left. If we divide it by 100, the 5 has gone from the unit to a hundredth. The 4 has gone from a tenth to a thousandth, and so on. Or again, the decimal place has moved 2 spaces to the left. So the number of zeros in the 10, 100 and 1,000 tells you how many spaces it will move. 2, to remember which way it should move, use common sense. So multiplying by 10, 100 and 1,000 and so on makes the number bigger, and dividing always makes the number smaller. And add zeros if necessary to fill in empty spaces between the decimal point and the number. So example 3, part A, 2.53 times 10. What that's going to do is move everything to the left by 1, or move the decimal point 1 space to the right. So that's going to be 25.3 or 25.3. So the decimal place is moved 1 to the right. B, multiplying by 100, that means we're going to move things 2 places, and the number's going to get bigger. So the 7, which is a hundredth, is going to be moved to the tenth to the unit. so 2 columns to the left, or the decimal place is going to move 2 to the right. And the answer is 7.52. C, 18.4 times by 1,000. So we're going to move everything 3 columns to the left, or the decimal place 3 points to the right. So if we left it as 184, that's 1. Everything is moved once, so we need to put in 2 more zeros to show that it's moved 3 times. So initially it was between the 8 and the 4. The decimal point currently then would be after the 0, so it's moved once, twice, 3 times. And then D, 0.06 times by 10, we move the decimal point once and we get 0.6. So it's been moved from between the 2 zeros to before the 6. Dividing by 10 then, in example A, it's going to make the number smaller. So we could have a quick estimate of that. So 28.9 is pretty much 30. 30 divided by 10 we know is 3. So our answer is going to be in around 3. Moving the decimal place once, we'll get the answer to be 2.89. To divide by 100, we're going to move the decimal place twice. So we're going to have 0.0068. So what we can see is initially it was before the 6, and now it's been moved 2 places to the left. 2005 divided by 1,000, that's almost 2,000 divided by 1,000, which is 2. The decimal point currently is after the 5, and we're going to move it 3 times, once, twice, 3 times. So it's going to be 2.005. 3.9 divided by 100, move the decimal place twice. What we're going to have is it's going to be 0.039. And we can see that clearly, that it's been moved from between the 3 and the 9 once, twice. So we have 0.039. Multiplying and dividing by 20, 300, 5,000, etc. These numbers are particularly easy to multiply and divide by, as they're just multiples of 10, 100 and 1,000. So what we do is we split the sum up into 2 things that we know how to do, as shown below. So essentially what we have then is if we're multiplying by 50, that's the same as multiplying by 10 and then multiplying by 5. If we were multiplying by 300, we can multiply by 100 and then by 3. And we can do those in any order. So we could multiply by 5 first of all and then by 10, or we can multiply by 10 and then 5, or multiply by 103, or then 3 and then 100. Example 4, 2.53 times 20. So the way in which we could do this is we could do 2.53 multiplied by 10 and then multiplied by 2. So 2.53 times 10 is 25.3. So we've moved the decimal place once, times 2. And then let's work that out. So 25.3 multiplied by 2. Put in our decimal point. 2 3s are 6. 2 5s are 10. 0 and carry a 1. And 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 is 5. So the answer is 50.6. And had we split it up by multiplying by 2 first of all and then by 10, we would have got the same answer. Multiplying 2.53 by 2 would give us 5.06, and then by 10 would get us to the 50.6. Example B, what we have is 0.0752 multiplied by 100 multiplied by 3. So multiplying by 100 moves the decimal place 2 places to the right. So that's going to be 7.52 times 3. So let's show we're working out for that. I'm going to line up the decimal points. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 5 is 15. So we'll do 5 and carry a 1. And then 3 times 7 is 21, plus the 1 that we carried is 22. So we'll put that down as 22. So the answer then is 22.56. And C, 18.4 times by 4,000, that's the same as 18.4 times 1,000 times 4. Multiplying by 1,000 moves the decimal place 3 spaces over. So what we're going to have is 18,400 times 4. So the decimal point was initially between the 8 and the 4, and it's now at the end, so we've moved it once, twice, 3 times. Another way to think about that is just 18 times 1,000 is going to be 18,000, so then it's 18,400. And then let's show the working out. 18,400 multiplied by 4. 4 times 0 is 0, 4 zeros are 0, 4 fours are 16, 6 and carry a 1. 4 times 8 is 32, plus the 1 is 33. So we'll put down a 3 and carry the 3. And then 4 times 1 is 4, plus the 3 is 7. So we'll put the 7 down, so our answer is 73,600. Example D, 28.8 divided by 20. So the way that we can do that is we'll divide by 10 and then by 2. You could divide by 2 and then by 10. We'll get the same answer. So 28.8 divided by 10 and then divided by 2. So if we divide by 10, we move the decimal place 1 to the left. So we're going to get 2.88 divided by 2. So let's put the 2.88 under the bus shelter and the 2 outside it. 2 into 2 goes once with no remainder, so we'll put in our decimal point and line it up with the other one. 2 into 8 goes 4 times and 2 into 8 goes 4 times, so the answer then is 1.44. Example E, 0.69 divided by 300. So we can do 0.69 divided by 100 first of all, and then divide by 3. 0.69 divided by 100 moves the decimal place twice to the left. So we're going to have 0.0069. So the decimal point was originally between the 0 and the 6, and we've moved it once, twice. And then divide that by 3. So let's put 0.0069 under the bus shelter and divide by 3. Let's line up our decimal points. So 3 into 0 goes 0 times. 3 into the next 0 goes 0 times. 3 into 0 goes 0 times. And now we're into something interesting. So 3 into 6 goes twice. And 3 into 9 goes 3 times. So our answer here is 0.0023. The last one then, 200.8 divided by 4,000. Just to mix it up a bit, we'll do it as 200.8 divided by 4 and then divided by 1,000. So let's put 200.8 under the bus shelter and divide by 4. 4 into 2 doesn't go, so it goes 0, remainder 2. 4 into 20 goes 5 times. 4 into 0 doesn't go. Decimal points are all nice and lined up. And then 4 into 8 goes twice. So now what we've got is 50.2, but we still need to divide that by 1,000. That's going to move the decimal place 3 times, so there's 3 zeros. So we're going to have to move it 3 spaces to the left. And what we get then is 0.0502. Let's just check the decimal places now we can see it. It was originally between the 0 and the 2, and it's moved once, twice, 3 times. So the answer is 0.0502.